Hi, welcome.
Hi there, I'm here.
Yay, how was your day?
Oh God, I got a crown.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little tired. Um, but I had insurance.
Oh, good.
That stuff can get expensive. I know a guy who dropped $4,000 on a couple crowns the other day.
Oh my God. They keep telling us it's better than being toothless.
Hey, Aisley, how are you doing?
Hi, good. How is everyone?
Great.
Nice to
Good.
see you, Aisley. Thanks for coming.
Of course.
Yeah, it's nice to see your little face after reading all your posts. You
Yes.
certainly have taken a lot of crap from people who think that they are spokeshumans.
I appreciate your frankness. It's quite true.
Poor little thing, but you seem to be doing well.
Oh yeah, hanging in there.
Yeah,
Nice to see you, Cindy.
thank you.
Nancy, I haven't seen you in so long.
I know. We should do lunch or do something.
I know I can tell you how things are going back at your old school.
I should just come visit and eat lunch with you.
No, you should.
I had a great lunch at Silverado the other day.
Yeah, did you do the brunch or what did you do?
Well, I on my second visit, the principal gave me a croissant with an egg and melted cheese. That was, yes, their brunch, and it was delicious. But I went on pizza day because our board president had said kids were complaining about the pizza last year. And it's hard to find something that's nutritious, and healthy, and looks like something kids will eat for 60 cents. That's our price point for a slice of pizza.
Wow.
How much it has to cost us. And we found a new a different crust that's still whole wheat, and it was really good. It was a very good pizza. And spinach salad.
I love it. That sounds good to me.
It was really good.
Was it cheese?
Yeah, I had mine was cheese. But they did have pepperoni. Kids do like pepperoni. But I really the croissant with it was like a square of egg, sort of like a souffle or frittata with melted cheese on top. It was fun.
Wow.
I'm always hungry. I'm always hungry.
Hi, everybody. I'm off camera because I'm actually driving. Nancy knows this. This is Hannah.
Hi,
But
Hannah.
I'm driving from my very first substitute teaching assignment.
Oh,
At
thank you.
American, I was at American Canyon Middle School. I didn't think this was going to happen because the process of getting certified was so ridiculous. I wanted to make a documentary about it. Like, this is why we don't have substitute teachers.
Oh,
But
it's awful.
it took almost a year. Then I had to redo all the trainings because they had expired by the time I went through, but it's okay. Yeah, so I was filling in. There was an assistant principal who was out, so the math teacher was subbing for the assistant principal. But I got to meet Clarissa, and the school is great. The campus is beautiful. American Canyon Middle.
Yes, it is.
That was really fun.
That's good to know. I'm glad you're doing it for us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to do it for you for a long time, but it got ridiculous.
I was there on Monday night, or was it Tuesday night? I can't remember anymore. Tuesday night, because I couldn't go see the native. I think
right.
Right, so,
Chihuahua.
because I went to something, I had to go to their 25th anniversary
Oh,
event. Yeah, it was fun.
Hey Nancy, it's Jessica. I'm off camera too because I am going to need to be driving shortly. My husband has COVID, so I'm primary caretaker for our kiddos. This just happened.
Oh, no.
I can be the official note taker, Nancy, until 4:30, but then I'm gonna have to log out, okay?
Okay, I totally understand, Jessica.
Thank you.
Okay, and hi, Christine. Nice to see you again. And hi, Evan.
Hi,
Hello. How are you? Oh, good. Well, welcome to the first meeting of the 2023-24 school year. This is our 4th year of the Equity and Inclusivity Council. So welcome, everyone. I'm Nancy Nord-Kanegi, retired school teacher. I think you all have met me before. And please type your name where it says present. If you don't have access to the agenda, Dave, would you put the agenda in the chat, please? But we can type our names in.
Sure.
And in the chat, please write one goal on which you would like this group to focus this year. If you could choose one or maybe two, because I got feedback that I got feedback from one person that maybe the goals should be a little narrower. And so that's okay. Are you doing share screen, Dave?
I
Oh,
am. And so what she's talking about is on page, what is this? 1, 2, 3. You got all the way down to page 4. There you go. Evan found it. It says present. I'm showing it now. You can just put your name in there.
Okay, I'll put Cindy's name in.
thank you. I don't know how to do this.
We got you, Cindy.
Perfect. Do you want me to get you, Christine?
and me, please.
Uh-huh.
I can't type and drive.
sure. Thank you.
Okay, good deal. Okay, so in the chat, if you would, like I say, write a goal you have this year. One of my goals is I want to figure out how to support teachers and staff when they hear the N word. And also how to educate students why it's not okay to use the N word. So that I'm going to write that in chat as my number one goal.
That's a great goal. And I think that we're going to be having to deal with that issue, all sorts of unpleasant racist epithets a lot this year. I think there's real harassment going on all around the Bay Area at public meetings. People are signing into Zoom meetings during public comments and being abusive, racially abusive, all over. I'm a member of a group of elected officials, and they're all reporting back that this is what's happening at their meetings. Now Sonoma County Board of Supervisors is not going to allow people to comment unless they're present at a meeting.
Okay. Yeah, they have to set some limits for safety. So this year, I will be your intrepid leader, and I have 2 co-leaders and then a offline support. So Dave, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is David Allred. I'm a 5th grade teacher at a bilingual immersion school, Napa Valley Language Academy here in Napa.
And Jessica, would you introduce yourself? Oh, and Dave this year is going to be my co-host and my tech guru. And Jessica?
Yes, I'm Jessica without a face today. I teach 4th grade at Canyon Oaks Elementary, and I'm also a member of our MVA equity team, and Evan is here who leads our MVA equity team. I'm thrilled to see him. So I'm the official note taker this year.
Thank you, Jessica. And so the group purpose is the Equity and Inclusivity Council collaborates with the Napa Valley Unified School District, local colleges, and other agencies and interested people to ensure that the school communities are safe and inclusive for all students, families, and staff, as well as the broader community. And then we have lots and lots of goals. And the norms are to be respectful, to lean into learning. It's okay to be raggedy. Don't worry if your thoughts aren't perfectly formed. Speak what is on your mind. Speak from a position of I and not we or them. Ask yourself, why am I talking and why am I not talking? To consider who is here and not here and why. And that came from Hannah. And I think it's important, who has access to technology, who isn't working at this time. So, who is here and who is not here, and try to invite more people. Or Hannah is starting a book club in the evening, I know. So there are opportunities or other if you want to be involved. If you want to, Dave, if you want to rename yourself with your pronouns, will you unshare your screen, Dave?
Sure.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so it just says you can hover above your name and then click on it in the Zoom screen. You go to participants, open panel, hover over your name, click more and rename, and you can add your pronouns there. So we know how to address you. Looks like I have mine up there.
And Dave, will you read the goals from the chat? And are you able to copy the chat? So we'll have these goals for the future.
Yeah. So the goals here that we have some really interesting ones. Nancy mentioned hers, how to support staff, students, and what to do when they hear the N-word. Aisley said, help create safe spaces for kids of all backgrounds in school. Help kids and teachers feel supported when they speak out against hate and discrimination, admin-wise and peer-wise. Oh, I said, I'd like a more inclusive health ed curriculum adopted by NVUSD. And that's in the works. And I just found out that I am on the panel.
Yay!
Very good.
Yeah, so I'm an equity and inclusivity mole, and I'm going in to make it more inclusive, because I've had to teach this stuff in 5th grade for years, and I'm like, what about all the queer kids? That's not fair. So we're going to pilot that this year. Let's see, Evan, 2 goals: expand some of the great work from the elementary level to the secondary level and integrate this work with the work of the NVUSD equity team. Totally agree. Cindy, I want feedback on the ethnic studies pilot that is going forward in 9th grade. And Christine said a K through 14 equity and social justice pipeline. Cool. All the way
Can you
through
tell
Napa.
me more about that, Christine? What would the
Yeah.
pipeline look like?
Absolutely. So I know that NVUSD is doing a lot in terms of integrating equity and social justice curriculum. Now it's required to be part of their 9th grade. This is a very important thing for me. So for those who don't know who I am, my name is Christine Tapia. I'm here as a parent at NVUSD. My son Alec is in Mr. Allred's class. And also, I am, my official capacity is the manager of dual enrollment and educational partnerships at Napa Valley College. So we are a good partner to NVUSD, and not just in expanding curriculum and pathways for college and career prep, but also in the equity and social justice work. So this year, the college is very focused on incorporating equitable practices, equitable instruction, and training for all of us administrators, faculty members, and staff. We are 2 years ago at the height after was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I can't even remember, everything blurred together now. After the murder of George Floyd, we actively participated in an initiative called the Caring Campus for the community college. And that is something that we hired a consultant. We had really great work that was actually initiated by our classified staff and has since then expanded to include faculty and administrators and our student body. We are re-engaging that this year. We have also partnered with the USC Center for Equity and Race and Equity to conduct a campus climate study for our students in terms of, with themes of making sure they feel belonging, issues on anti-racism and all of that. And so we are incorporating all of this work. There is a small group of us that works closely with our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office. Dr. Patricia Munsiemi normally attends these meetings as well. And we are working with the RP group, leading from the middle, to re-engage that work that was started 3 years ago with Caring Campus. And, overall to make sure that our students have a sense of belonging, not just on campus, but in our programming. And this is really key with the K-14 term, because currently 25% of our students at the college are NBUSD high school students. We have a large dual enrollment population. And so it's really important for us and very key that we are beginning this, not even in the 9th grade, but in elementary, as early as we can. And so we are going to be part of a lot of conversations with NBUSD leadership on how to make that pipeline happen. So.
Yeah, it's definitely starting in NBUSD, TK, and for sure we have the Rainbow Kids, TK to 5th grade. Is that what you're talking about, Evan? You want some curriculum or something to use to also promote inclusion in the middle school level?
Yeah, exactly. At our NBA equity team meetings, Jessica's talked a lot about the cool stuff she's been able to do. And I'm just like so excited about it. And then someone, I don't remember who it was, brought up like, what do we have in secondary? And there's not much. Yeah, we wanted more. I mean, from my perspective, especially for our middle schoolers, once they get to high school, they can start figuring things out for themselves somewhat, as nice as and important as it is to still have resources for them. Like it gets easier. But in that middle school stage, I mean, this is really one of the biggest struggles for them, and they don't really have anything yet, forgotten a lot. So I wanted to pull that up in some way. I don't have ideas, but that's part of why I wanted to be here.
And that makes no sense that they don't have those resources since they're going through the most intense changes.
I just have a suggestion. If we could go around and introduce ourselves too.
Well, we are doing that.
Oh, is that coming up next?
Yes, we are doing that right now. So I'm going to do I got a little sidetracked, wanted to know more about the goals. So thank you. We're going to do a land acknowledgement now. We would like to begin today by acknowledging that we are gathered on the ancestral and unceded land of the Patwin, Wapo, Miwok, and Pomo peoples, past and present. May we honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. And thanks to Hannah's advocacy in the First People movement, Tech from the Mishawal Wapos is training the ethnic studies teachers that are teaching the pilot year this year for ethnic studies in 9th grade. So that is
actually, I want to qualify that. Let me, especially since we have a board member.
Thank you.
It's not exactly training, but when it gets around to it, I'll share that announcement with a little bit more detail. Okay. It's exciting, but I just have to make sure it's not official.
Well, she met with Dale Allender and Hannah and me and Monica Reddy and Kelly. What's Kelly's last name?
Miller.
Kelly Miller. And so that connection has been made. So it's nothing official yet, but it's in the beginning stages. And may we now take a moment of silence to honor oppressed people in our history: Black, Native American, AAPI, women, LGBTQ+, disabled, and others. Just take a moment to breathe and remember. Okay, so now's the time when we get to do introductions. In the book, Four Pivots, it's a book that NVUSD's DEI steering committee, we met last year, and we're going to meet 5 times this year. Yesterday was the first meeting, and Hannah, Evan, and I were there. And in this book, it talks about just education is so important. And I know all of you, but I don't know everything about you. So today we're going to learn a little bit more about each other in your ethnicity, your cultural heritage, just a little background so we can connect a little better. And so I'm going to start. I have a Russian doll. My grandma, my dad's side, Margaret Nord, was born in Odessa, Russia, which is now part of Ukraine. And she was born in like 1910, and she was Mennonite, and they were conscientious objectors. And so when the World War I started, they did not want to be a part of it. And they were also Mennonite, and they were persecuted because they were different for their religion. And so my grandma came to Ellis Island, and she had pink eye, and so she couldn't get in with the rest of the family. She had to be treated, and she taught me to make sweebok and roll coca, and it's a fried bread. And so with my mom, my dad passed away, we're gonna, get together as a family and just follow traditions. And so, and basically, I am white and privileged, and I just want to make a difference and be an ally for others who haven't received the same treatment as I have. I can just walk in, and it's amazing. I can be at a gathering with, my Latino friends, or with Palestinian friends, and I can just be the one who can speak up. Someone was bothering us at a picnic, and none of my Latinx friends spoke up, and I'm like, you need to leave. We have this place reserved. You can't be here drunk and bothering our group. I'm like, I'm going to call the police if you don't stop bothering us. I think I have that. Just being white, I'm able to have. Yeah, he listened to me. And so anyway, that's why we have this group. And would someone else like to share? If you don't have an artifact, you can just share a story, and you can put it in the chat if you want, if you don't want to speak, or whatever works best for you.
I can show you a picture. I hope you can see it. Evan might recognize it, because I brought it to my class when we read Love Medicine. But if you look, you'll see my great-grandmother on one side and my great-grandfather on the other. My great-grandfather is descended from Basile Clement and a Cree lady. And then Basile was half French and half Cree, excuse me. And then he married a woman from Missouri River tribe. And basically Basile Clement founded the clan, the Claymore clan. Claymore is a corruption of a French name, Clement. There are a bunch of natives on the Standing Rock Reservation. They're still there. This is my father's grandparents. And she was quite a seamstress, won all the prizes at the state fair. And and she was his first wife, and she died, and he was married 7 times more, I'm afraid.
Wow.
And his last wife was a white woman. And so I have cousins who are on the move finding the artifacts that this lady made and buying them up. I have a pair of moccasins that she made. She was very talented. And this couple, the parents of my grandfather, took him out the morning after Wounded Knee. He was 8 years old, and he remembered seeing all the bodies piled up, the bodies that were later piled into a ditch. So that is the family on my father's side. And my mother's side were, your usual bunch of cranky people coming out of Scotland in the 18th century and settling in the East. And although my great grandmother, I'm told, was a Mennonite, and during the Depression, she had a wealthy husband, but she was dressed in a very plain manner, and she ran a soup kitchen off the back porch during the Depression. Probably built some goodwill in the community. Her husband had a lot of money, and she wouldn't let him move out of the original neighborhood to a fancy house. Her favorite comment was, my mother told me, was, "That is not suitable." If somebody would wear something that was completely flashy, like a fur coat in the middle of the Depression, that is not suitable. So those are the 2 sides of my family.
Thank you, Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I can go. I don't know much about my family's history. Like Nancy, privileged white guy. I'm straight. I'm cisgender, and I'm white. But I did find out recently something interesting, which was that old Solomon Allred. That's a name for you. Solomon Allred came over from Europe in the 1600s because his family was persecuted for being Quakers.
Yeah.
So that made me feel happy, because at least I'm descended from, activist egalitarian stock, which I will continue to try to represent in this lifetime, as Nancy was saying, using that privilege to help those who don't have the privilege.
I can go. Both sides of my family, from my mom's side and my dad's side, are very European, and I know very little about them because almost all of them came over a long time ago and mixed quite a bit, moved quite a bit. So there's not much history there. But one thing that I do have, oh, you can't see it, it's blurring it. Well, it's a jar of tomato sauce.
Yay.
And so my last name is Versalini, which I'll share a little bit more about in a bit, but very strong Italian from one quarter. And so that's kind of the side that's dominated my identity, because it was the thing that I knew. I know on my mom's side there's some Swedish, Norwegian, a little bit, but that's about it. And on my dad's side, quarter Italian. So when I was thinking about what to bring, I thought it was interesting that I think this both demonstrates the strength of that tradition and the weakness, right? Because the part that I remember is just a small bit of food that we like to make and are very good at, and have family recipe and sent down from who knows how long, but that's kind of it. Don't know any relatives, don't know any of the history, besides the name, which I'm going to put a couple things in the chat. My name is after this one small province in Italy, where I think I probably hold the record among this group for the furthest back connection I can get, which is to I am hopeful, imagining that someone in my distant past was involved in the Battle of Vercellae in 101 BC, between the Romans and some Germanic folks who were there. So I'm obviously no way to verify, but I always thought it was fascinating that this articles have been academic articles have been written about this battle happened in this tiny little area of Italy where ostensibly some of my family is from. So yeah, that's my quarter Italian.
Super cool. Evan, may I ask a follow-up question? What do you teach? You teach in middle school?
Yes, I teach at Unidos and I teach math.
Okay, you teach math at Unidos. In what grade level? Is it all of them?
No, this year I got lucky and I'm just teaching 8th.
Wow. Nice.
Thank you, Evan. Would anybody else like to share?
Or I can go ahead.
Okay,
So,
thanks, Christy.
I I identify as Filipino. I was born, raised, and educated in the Philippines. And so my story actually was, my oldest son, Alec, was in Mr. Allard's class. It's very instrumental in me finding out about my history because of a project he did last year. I think in Mrs. Dowling's class. Well, it was Alec, the suitcase project. He's sitting right there. And it allowed us to trace up to the, I would say, 1700s, the history of both sides of our, of his dad and mine. And we found out along the way through conversations with living grandparents, great, uncles and aunts, family Facebook groups about where we came from. And it was really interesting to us that, I found out that my great grandparents were actually from mainland China. All along, I thought, my grandmother was of Spanish descent, which is not unusual since, the Philippines is under over 300 years of Spanish rule. And on my husband's side, my husband is of Peruvian descent. His parents were both emigrated from Peru, but his grandfather actually is of Palestinian descent. And so through that, we have discovered that, my kids have roots in Jordan. And so one of the cousins actually went to Jordan last year and met for the first time cousins that from that side. His great grandfather was one of, I think, 8 siblings, 2 of which remained in Jordan. And so we were able to connect with these relatives that we've never, known before. And I think it was a really cool exercise because along the way we found out different things. Like, there's that cool feature on Google that you can plug in different like places and see like where your heritage is from. And Alex was like all across the map, from Asia to Africa, which is really amazing to find out. Not just for him, but us as parents. But the other thing is, like, it's importantly significant for me today, especially significant for me to mention that I identify as Filipino because today is September 21st, and it marks the 51st anniversary of the Declaration of Martial Law under Ferdinand E. Marcos. And so I mentioned that not to put on the spotlight a lot of the human rights injustices that was done to many Filipinos during those horrific times, but to put a voice on what's happening right now in the Philippines and in some parts of the United States where there is an attempt for historical distortion. There is, millennial Filipinos are not exposed to what we were brought up with in terms of history, education and history about the inhumane things that happened during those times. And so it is especially valuable for us who are now parents to ensure that our kids keep aware of that. In American Canyon, where some of you teach, there is a very large population of Filipino American students. And, this is especially, important for us too, with, this social equity and social justice pipeline from K to community college, because we are very intentional at the college about making sure that our Filipino American students have a place and they have a sense of belonging. And we've actually established a Filipino American learning community because of that. These are themes that we strategically and intentionally discuss in our classes so that we don't forget, right? Because that's the whole theme, we never forget. And we remember, because nothing teaches us more about how to improve our lives but history. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Christine. And yeah, I'm impressed with the learning communities the Napa Valley College has. And I've been in contact with Sherry, the leader of the Filipino group. And we will have the ethnic studies teacher at Napa Valley College and the Black American learning
Great. Yeah.
group.
So
they will speak in January. So
perfect.
Yeah, and learning more about what Napa Valley Unified School District has on the high school level as far as learning communities and trying to promote those.
Yeah.
I think it's very important.
We're very proud that we now have 4. We have Puente for our Latinx Chicano experience, Kasaysayan for Filipinx American experience, Umoja for our Black African American experience, and then we now have a new LGBT Pride learning community. Since we are really expanding LGBTQ and transgender studies in our curriculum. So
yeah, thank you for being leaders.
And Christine, what is your title of your position at the Napa Valley College?
Yeah, so I'm the manager of dual enrollment and educational partnerships. So all K-12 partnerships, CCAP agreements, CTE grants. I live in the career tech ed division, but I really oversee all of our high school partnerships and outreach.
Okay.
Thank you. Aisley, you had your hand up?
Yeah. Okay, 1 second. I know I might blur on, so this might mess it up a little bit, but okay, let's see if I can get it in the picture with me. There we go. So you can kind of see the pattern. This is a Lapa. And I know that I'm speaking a bit later about some more heavy topics, so I wanted to bring in something kind of joyous and happy. So a Lapa is a beautiful piece of West African clothing. I am Black, white, and Puerto Rican, and up until I took a ancestry DNA test, I had no idea what any of that meant. And finally, got my answers and got my results. But like a lot of African American individuals in this country, a lot of us don't know where we're from or what our backgrounds are because of the unfortunate history of this country. But I took an African dance class and was lucky enough to get one of these. And it was a really healing experience. It's a very important piece of clothing. It has it's deeply rooted in the culture there, but also has formal and informal uses. And in the United States, it's usually used in an informal manner. As my dance teacher liked to say, you can use it to carry laundry. I've used it to carry laundry. Use it to carry your children, to dress yourself, from a dress to a skirt to a shirt. It's a very versatile piece of clothing. So I wanted to bring this because it shows a little bit of my background that, I'm still discovering a lot about myself. And you'll hear a little bit about my experience growing up in Napa and not having access to a lot of those, different cultural parts of myself. And so college and being out on the East Coast has really been an eye-opening experience for me, getting to learn more about my heritage and where I'm from. So yeah, Lapa.
Thank you, Aisley. Oh, and welcome, Madonna. I didn't say hi yet. Glad you're here.
Hello. Yeah, this email came to my junk folder and I've been in a conference all day.
Well, we are sharing our ethnic or cultural heritage with an artifact or a story. Would you like to share?
Sure. So I put in the chat who I am named after. On my mother's side, I'm enrolled California tribe, Pomo. My father's tribe is Lakota. So I'm named after Madonna. I'm Little Madonna. She's a part of the American Indian movement. And so big shoes to fill my entire life. She's still working very hard. And so am I. So I'm glad to be here.
Oh, thank you, Madonna. And on Facebook, I get to follow all of the wonderful work you're doing over in Sonoma. So thank you. Jessica or Hannah, would you like to share?
Nancy, I'm trying to do the notes. So Hannah, go ahead.
Okay. I am Hannah Henry. I'll share a piece of reindeer pelt from above the Arctic Circle in Sweden, where I visited. I am a white. I fulfill all of the letters of the acronym WASP, white, Anglo-Saxon, and Protestant, because I'm half English apparently and half Scandinavian, Swedish, and Danish. The most cultural sort of connection I had, the strongest cultural connection I have is with my Scandinavian ancestors, because my grandmother grew up Danish, and then my great grandfather, my great grandparents came from Sweden and Denmark. My great grandfather apparently, though, who was Swedish, Alberg. He during the Depression, he opened his house to anybody who was passing through who needed a bed or a warm meal. That was always available. And my mom, who was an activist, who died 11 years ago, she was an activist her whole life. She learned from him. She learned kind of that way of living, helping those in need. And what I learned from her is that it's an ongoing process of learning. So, she became a gay rights advocate in the 80s once she became aware of it. Like it definitely took some learning. But I would say culturally, that's my sort of, I was raised in an environment of white allyship, but I'm still learning what that means myself. Oh, sorry, let me just name the tribe where this reindeer pelt comes from. I don't know if I'm descended from the indigenous peoples of Sweden, but they are the last kind of indigenous tribe that is still active in all of Europe, and they are the Sami people. They were called by white people the Laplanders. I mean, they have white skin, but they refer to themselves as native versus white. They were called Laplanders. You may have heard of them as like reindeer herders. They are not all reindeer herders, but they are a very activist group. They are also going through language restoration, and that's the heritage that I can maybe connect myself to. Thanks.
Thank you, Hannah. And I'll take notes, Jessica.
Okay, well, I was just going to say though, Nancy, I was going to just put my stuff in the chat because we are past our time and I want to make sure we honor Aisley. Am I saying Aisley? Am I saying it right? Okay, I want to make sure we honor Aisley's time.
Oh, thank you so much, Jessica. So our guest speaker today, I had the privilege of knowing my son Jacob went to school with Aisley from, well, they were together in, I think, kindergarten to 6th grade. And so that was Stonebridge School, and then River Middle School for 7th and 8th, Napa High School, 9th through 12th. And now she's a graduate student at American University in Washington, D.C. and getting her master's in terrorism and homeland security policy. So Aisley, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for having me. So I'm going to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm sure everyone in the document has seen the wonderful prompt for this evening. But really, I'm going to kind of start at where I am now and then go back to the very beginning of my roots in Napa and talk a little bit about some life experiences, as well as some things that I think can be improved in the educational system here in the Napa Valley. I'm also going to be reading off a little prompt so I stay on time. So I apologize if it looks like I'm reading things. So yes, I am currently at American University in Washington, D.C. I did my undergrad here, and I'm currently doing graduate school here and considering a PhD. Coming to American University was a life-changing experience for me, to put it completely frankly. For the first time in my life, I felt like I did not have to speak up for myself or talk about my life and my person as a political issue in an uncomfortable setting. I no longer felt like I was constantly fighting an uphill battle against racism, discrimination, and ignorance, a lot of which I saw in the Napa Valley. And it was because everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, a lot of people here were very informed. And no worries, Jessica, thank you so much. So in Napa, I felt like a mandatory teacher in all things POC and progressive. And I also felt like I had to be a spokesperson for everything my background represented, which is a very confusing topic for someone who grew up in a very white space and did not have access to my family members who are Puerto Rican and Black, who were on the East Coast and in the South and all over the rest of the United States, except for California. Now, going back in time to how I got here. So I started at Stonebridge School, where inclusion was a really big part of what the school was at its foundation, but it went about it a little bit the wrong way. And I think we're kind of seeing that play out on a national scale right now with this idea of if we don't talk about it, then it's not an issue. And the problem that Stonebridge had was they tried to be inclusive by treating everyone equal, but in that way, they never discussed the real problems that POC kids would actually face in the real world. So by the time I was in third grade, I had been told that my skin looked like poop 3 times by my peers. And it was never something that, you know, was seen as wrong by them. And I always wondered, you know, why am I being compared to that? And I never questioned that I looked different, but I knew that I was. And the only way that I found that out was actually from my parents providing me books at home, because everything we learned at school was very historical and about historical forms of very severe racial discrimination, not anything living in the present. So while it was a wonderful environment to grow up in, they also kept us away from any types of current media. It was a really big part of the curriculum to stay in this natural environment. And that ended up being very detrimental when I later moved to a public middle school. And no joke, almost had a panic attack when I heard someone cuss for the first time in my life and found out what racism and terrorism was. And it was this giant bubble just popping in my life because I had been sheltered from it up until the middle of 7th grade. So all of this made the world a lot less accessible to me. And then I was at River Middle School, public middle school, and wow, they had this thing called AGSA, All Genders and Sexualities Accepted. And it was wonderful and supportive and inclusive, and the school supported it and let us do events. And it was the first time that I was a part of this club with people who were like me. And at the time, I didn't even know what my sexuality was. It wasn't something that had been discussed with me up until that point in time, but I knew there was all of these wonderful people who seemed so sure in themselves, and I found a community there. And that's why, Dave, when you said earlier that sex ed was getting a little bit revamped, I got really excited because that was something that both in middle school and in high school was super, you know, heterocentric, and it's something that I really hope gets a little bit of a revamp there. But while I was introduced to these new forms of sexuality, my ethnicity still was kind of hanging in the balance. And then I moved to Napa, High. That's when things kind of got a little bit turbulent. I was finally placed in a box because I was Black, but not really Black. I was Puerto Rican, but couldn't speak Spanish. And my skin made it impossible for me to identify as white. So I was this unknown thing, and people decided that because there was a lack of Black people at American University, that I was in fact Black, but not super Black. And this got complicated when other Black students enrolled in Napa High, and I served as a comparison for people to sexualize all of us and compare the way that we spoke and dressed and acted. And it pushed my culturally white self into this stereotype, which I happily adopted because I didn't know any better. And I kept being told that this was the way that I needed to act and this was the way that I needed to look. And it stayed that way until about my senior year of high school, when I finally came into myself. It affected my dating life and the dating life of the Black girls at our school because we were seen as prized possessions because we were different and unique. I was pushed into a relationship with the only other Black male in my grade. Wonderful guy, but I finally got to see, he was a football player, the racism he experienced, because as a Black person at Napa High, you could do one of three things. You could ignore the racism, you could push through and laugh along and participate in it, or you could call it out and be the teacher and representative for an entire race. And for me, I picked that third option, but not until my senior year. The rest I usually ignored. And I dated someone who had to push through it because he was part of a culture on the Napa High football team where racism was rampant. I still have screenshots on my phone of the horrendous nicknames of the football group chat names: White Knights of the KKK, Popeyes in the KKK. Pictures that I took to the administration, and I was told, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. We'll tell the coaches about it and they'll take care of it themselves. And nothing was ever done. And I had to watch as my partner had to suffer through that for 4 years of his life. In addition to that, these boxes that were placed on us, or I should say placed on me, were placed on the rest of the Black girls at Napa High School. And instead of it being a collective space where we could come together and lament about it, we were pitted against each other and colorism started coming into play, which was not a great thing to see. And I've become a lot more educated on it. But it was something hard to deal with as a teenager. And that's not to say that, we had amazing teachers. I learned a lot for some really great and supportive teachers. And we did have good admin. I would love to shout out Miss Lamarca. She was the most inspiring ray of light in my life during my time at Napa High School. And we had support from individuals. But as a collective student body, everyone was afraid to speak out because it was a part of the culture. Saying the N-word was a part of the culture. And everyone was afraid to address it. Admin were afraid to cause trouble, especially after the giant football scandal after sophomore year. And there was no support or teaching structures in place for admin or teachers to help. There was nowhere to direct us. There was no clubs for people who didn't fit in to specific little boxes. So how do we get to a place like American University, where I felt the heaviest weight taken off my shoulders? From what I've seen, it was the product of an informed, conscious, respectful, and outspoken student body. And that's not to say that we don't still have problems. There are still problematic students at our school, but what we found is that they don't last long here. Because our accountability is strong, we hold our friends accountable, we hold ourselves accountable, and we try our best not to be defensive, but open to criticism and critiques and learning. And we have an administration that's willing to take action and not be compliant towards it. And when our administration is, the student body makes sure that we speak out against it. So I want to speak about how I've grown and implemented some of these DEI lessons I've learned into my life and how I've seen them reflected in my college life as well. So I'm going to get into my background here. But as an undergrad, I was involved in I was a part of the honors college at my school. So I was on the Honor Student Advisory Committee, Mock Trial, National Democrats Organization, Alpha Pi Sigma, which was the National Honor Society for Criminal Justice. And I still sit as the co-director for the March for Our Lives chapter at American University. And what I've personally tried to do, as well as my school, is we've implemented a few things. The first is that we make sure that each organization always has a DEI chair. Someone who themselves is a person of color that can speak to their own experiences and make sure that they aren't repeated again in this environment. And we make sure that all recruitment and meetings and that the general organization are inclusive, safe spaces for everyone. And these are things that I didn't get to see much in my educational space when I was being brought up in Napa. So I try to make sure and make a point of making sure that the people around me know that me, myself, and I are a safe space, that there is no space for intolerance or hateful beliefs in my life, and therefore people can come to me. But at the same time, both me and my school make sure that students know that there are outside resources beyond just me or a part of the organization or a part of the school that they can reach out to, because we have to accept that we are not all the save all in people's lives, and our job is to help others, and that doesn't always include us in that helping process. So for NVUSD, what I would really like to see is, and what I'm starting to see after listening to you guys speak today, is provide all of these resources in the classroom, both at an individual level, make sure that teachers are equipped to be safe spaces, make sure that classrooms are those safe spaces, that the school, that the community all have safe spaces, and that these resources are available. And again, individual, classroom, school, community, state, and national level, that students know who they can reach out to, because sometimes that's not always obvious and clear. I would really like to see more accountability for people and their actions, their words and behaviors, whether they're friends or family or colleagues, whether they're teachers or admin, and especially when they're in positions of power, that there's structures in place to hold people accountable. I would love to see more safe spaces in the form of diverse clubs to represent the multitude of identities we have in the Napa Valley School District. And I know that that is a process that is still ongoing, but I think that it has been a struggle, and it ebbs and flows, and it really has been put on the students to keep clubs alive, when I think it should be in the hands of teachers to make sure that those students are invited into those spaces, and that the clubs always continue at the same levels of strength. Another really big one is continuing the teaching of real informed history and not whitewashing it. I saw a lot of that, unfortunately, growing up, and I know there's a lot of curriculum that teachers need to cover, but making sure that we're being fair to what history we're teaching is really important. I learned way too much when I joined a middle school and did AP classes. I found that there is a very big divide between classes that aren't AP, and all other classes. A lot of the history of marginalized and POC communities isn't taught, and I really hope there's a way to kind of bridge that gap. And lastly, I hope that we can find a way to start combating this ignorance and bigotry and hate that's learned at home and brought to school by students and by teachers, and provide teachers and schools the resources to resolve these issues while supporting students from marginalized communities. Because while I was at Napa High and my time at school, it was very hard to find a person to go to if I ever had any of those issues as a woman of color. So thank you so much for letting me speak about my experience and thoughts today. I really appreciate the existence of this group. And Nancy has told me so much about the work that you've done. So thank you all for listening. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Aisley, for
Can
sharing.
we ask some questions?
Yes.
Hi, Aisley, I'm friends with your mom. Please tell her Hannah says hi. I remember when she was trying to keep you from doing this work because it required it just requires bravery on the entire family. And I have so much admiration that you've continued to push forward against enormous odds. So I wanted to ask a little bit about at American, do you have any examples of holding people accountable and providing resources for resolving some of these issues? I know that's a really big question, but I think that sounds like it might be one of the goals that we're, at least Nancy and I agree on. This is a really important, something really important that we need, that teachers need as a toolkit. Parents, I consider myself pretty well versed in stuff, but it's very challenging for me to know what are the steps to talking through both, racist, verbalizing racism, racist kind of imagery, through graffiti or that kind of thing. But like, is there a handbook or something that American uses? Is there some guidelines that you could point us to?
Yeah, I think part of the eye-opening experience going to college is that I think amongst liberal arts colleges as a whole, there's some different rules in place that I wish a lot of high schools adapted, but I know it isn't the norm. And I'll start off with your first question, which was specific examples. So my school, when we do have instances, they're usually having to deal with anti-Semitism, followed by racism. Those are the biggest. And I will say that the way that the school addresses them, which was kind of shocking, coming from Napa High, where, if someone says the N-word, it's just not addressed. And if there's a racist incident, sometimes it's addressed, but usually in whispers and through rumors, and it's not really addressed directly by the school that often. If there's any type of hint of, for example, we had a swastika carved into a dorm tile in a bathroom, and we had a university email sent out about it, about the procedures that were going to be put in place to find this person while respecting the privacy of students. And along with that email was a resource link for people to have access to counselors for free, the hours of that, both on campus and off campus. And it was made clear to teachers that for students affected, that they should adapt their materials for that week and try to be accommodating to students if they needed a mental health day or any type of kind of redistributing the work so that it wasn't as hard on them that week. So my school is very reactive, which I appreciate the transparency, but also the level of resources that are provided to us. I think something that helps at the college level is the Title IX. I have definitely had friends who have had experiences if there is any type of sexual assault or even someone just feeling uncomfortable. There's steps that can be taken at a university level, and I know that high schools have mandatory reporters, but I think the big difference is the type of immediate action that's taken. The student in question is usually immediately removed from that space. And they have varying levels of, no contact, I know is something that was available at Napa High, although unfortunately when I needed that, it was not implemented well. But I think that we have different levels of no contact, from verbal to not being in the same classroom or same space, and trying to make sure that schedules are worked around so the students never have to interact, and then taking it to the extreme of moving them to a different school and that type of level. But I think that there's some legal differences between high school and college that high schools can kind of look into and be involved in more. What I've really found, though, is just the transparency and accountability of the administration is really important, because I know it's really easy for schools to not want to share all of the bad and negative things that are happening on campus, but it's really important for students to know that the schools are paying attention to that and they're taking action, and to know what those actions are. Yeah, long answer, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Our time is, I want to honor our time, but I want to honor everybody's sharing and Aisley, your vulnerability and your eloquence in speaking about these difficult times and the evolution of your of your experiences. I'm so glad you're in a place where you feel safe. And the work of this group is, like Christine says, TK 14, what we have here in Napa, to make all places safe. And luckily, we have a wonderful collaboration with the school board and with Dr. Musetti, and working on these issues. And sometimes, Dave and I can be a little, what about this? Have we done this question? Or this is happening? But know that for the most part, I feel listened to by the upper administration. And I know that I can go to the school board and say, Cindy, and when I'm on the steering committee for DEI, I can ask these questions. And so it's just a matter of moving forward. And like Hannah said, if someone has, a handbook on how to support teachers, this is what you do when you hear the N word. You can right there say, no, that's not okay. Or how, as a whole TK 14 institution, we're talking about why that's not okay, or teaching about Filipino history or different cultures, right? So we all understand, because I'm very naive and just want to learn more and more to make sure people feel safe. So it's all a work in progress, and I really appreciate everybody being here.
Can we put your name in as a possible resource? Hopefully, I would hope compensated, but like a possible resource if we can put together some kind of like a steering committee of developing a toolkit for responding to this.
Oh yeah.
I developed some I got some feedback from teachers and students of color in 2019, and didn't have a way to share it back. I shared it to the district offices, and to some individuals, but there's a lot of feedback and advice and desperately desired change out there floating around. But it's time, I think, we gather it together. And I think you would be you've already shared so much. I feel like you could be an amazing resource to help future kids like you and different from you.
Thank you. Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys do this upcoming year. Looks like you've got some great things planned.
Yes, and you were asking about, who we're open to anyone who wants to work in this space, because the more we can reach out, like to American University or to Sonoma, where Madonna is, what they're doing there, because it's just a way to share and pool the great things they're doing in Sonoma County, pool the great things you're doing at American University, so that we all with the same goal. So thank you so much. I have the link there for the Napa Valley College LGBTQ connection. I've signed up already. A person who worked with Harvey Milk, it will be talking, and so I am grateful for that educational opportunity. November 30th, Tech, the cultural monitor for the Mishawal Wapos of this area, will speak on the presence of First People in Napa Valley and the importance of learning their history, culture, traditions, and sustainable living practices. And that is all. Oh yeah, and then the next meeting was November 30th, January 2nd, March 14th, May 16th. If anyone wants to get small rainbow flags, there's a sign up. And Jessica Rennie wanted to make sure that I put the safe space poster here too, so that teachers who need it can put the safe space poster up. Any last comments or questions?
Sure, I have one. So my birthday is September 30th. I will be working all day at the Susquehanna Powwow. I'm a legacy of Susquehanna Intertribal Council in Napa. because of my grandmother. And so I have been helping them for a long, long time. And Charlie Toledo, who basically is an adopted family member to my grandmother, has done a great job of doing that work of the elders that have passed on. So I invite you guys to come check out the powwow. It is open to the public at Skyline Park, Saturday and Sunday, the 30th of September and October 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Madonna. I will put that in the notes right here about what you're doing, the share. Is it called Susquehanna Intertribal Council Powwow? Or
It's the Susquehanna powwow. Yeah, yeah. There would be a flyer. My Facebook page is Madonna Feather, so I post a lot of things there. You could add me and we could be friends. And tomorrow, if you're bored and have nothing to do, it's the 56th annual California Indian Day at the state capitol. So you could come hang out with me and Senator Ramos and the other hundreds of natives that are going to be there celebrating that we are still alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madonna. Will you tell me it's the state capitol one?
It's tomorrow, 56th annual California Native Day. That one I posted on my Facebook this morning. So it's high there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so September 21st. Okay, thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon and thank you for all your positive energy and collaboration. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Aisley. That was amazing.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you.
Okay.